Hi, I'm David Bloom, Associate Dean and Chief Communications Officer for the USC Marshall School of Business. We're here today with Dr. Richard Chase, one of the world's foremost experts on customer service operations. For 30 years now, Dr. Chase has been writing about how you do a better job providing customer service. Famously, Dr. Chase, you offered a money-back guarantee in your class, something you still do from time to time, I understand. Why did you do this? It's sort of a interesting thing to offer.
Well, I did it for one thing, for one reason, is that nobody had ever done it before. And I think part of being creative in any industry is doing something different. But more than that, people have always expressed frustration about their classes. They're taking a class, and they have, before they even take it, they say, well, is it going to be worth my time, worth my money? And I wanted to signal to people that I stood behind what I was delivering, and that it's not to anybody's advantage to collect on this guarantee. People don't want to waste a whole semester in a class they don't like, and I certainly don't want to have to pay off. So it's a way of focusing everybody's attention on what's important to the customer. In this case, it's the student. Right. And so that was the reason behind it.
So it kind of upped the ante for you as much as anybody there. Have you ever had to pay off?
No, I never had to pay off. It was interesting. One of the deals is that the students had to tell me ahead of time if things weren't going well. In other words, I didn't want any surprises after the fact.
Right.
The guarantee was that if they were not satisfied with my MBA course in service operations, I'd refund $250 of the course fee plus the cost of the books and cases. So that it was a pretty sizable amount. Right. It wouldn't be breaking the bank, although I had about 80 students in the first time I offered this, and my real estate agent said that I might be underinsured. He actually called my wife up and said that have I thought about this, because the story about the guarantee made the Wall Street Journal and the LA Times.
That's great.
Also, they said that my wife woke me up in the middle of the night. She said, "You big mouth could cost us $14,000 this year."
This isn't just something you did to make a splash. It also makes a point that has some implications for anybody who's trying to run a business. Right. And could you talk a little bit about how you improve customer service? You've done some writing in recent years looking at how behavioral science, the understanding we've come to have of how humans operate, can be applied to customer service. Talk about the psychology and the impact of a money-back guarantee running somebody's business.
Well, on the one hand, it's a signaling device. There's two players in this guarantee: the promise makers and the promise keepers. Marketing is the promise maker. Operations is the promise keeper. So you have to be able to deliver on that guarantee that you're promising people, and that it focuses the entire organization's energies on what's important to the customer. Because if the customer wants to invoke it, you got a problem. Sometimes, though, you're going to find out things, and depending upon your industry, that are problems that you didn't know exist simply because you offered a guarantee. Then you fix these. Having, not necessarily in academics, but in the range of most other industries, you want people to collect from time to time, because it provides information to you, kind of in quality control terms, that it shows you the rocks just underneath the water, and that it brings them to bear, it brings the water, the problems to the surface.
Interesting. So it's not actually that expensive a survey when you figure out what surveys will cost, but it gives you some very good feedback.
That's right.
On the issues that could wash over your entire business.
That's right. You might not be aware of them, and so it's a way of getting feedback. And yeah.
Now, there are some other suggestions that you have for folks who want to improve their customer service. Right. Talk a little bit about some of these other key points that you've made in your work in recent years.
Well, right now I'm working on what I call the et ceteras of service, ETCs.
And of course, they're anything but also after the thought kinds of things.
Exactly. We think about a service as sort of the core thing that you're offering, the deliverable, the hamburger, the stay in the hotel, the flight on the airline. And often the core service can be delivered in a effective way, but the difference comes about in the et ceteras. In the et ceteras, A stands for emotions, T stands for trust, and C stands for control. The et cetera. So if you think about this, that customers experience emotions in any service encounter. They may not be above the surface necessarily, but they're there. So what you want to do is establish an emotional climate that you want to have developed. For example, I just got back from visiting the Bel Air Hotel in West LA, and the emotional climate they're out to develop is serenity. Now, what do you have to do to achieve serenity in emotions? Well, you have to have quiet gardens and not noisy people running around and so on. So that's pretty obvious. And then you want to manage the emotions as they take place. And you can have companies manage emotions like, for example, the Seattle Supersonics. They have a guy who sits at a desk in the stadium at the Seattle Arena where the Supersonics play. The Sonics aren't a very good team by and large.
No.
But their fans are very loyal, and one of the reasons is that they have a guy who's managing the emotions. This guy who's sitting at courtside is actually at a console, and he is managing the emotions by flashing signs across the screen of the overhead TV set, telling when to cheer, and during timeouts, what to say, what to do. And what happens is you get people into the game. So you're managing emotions as they take place. Another kind of emotional management is dealing with problems, which are the kinds that we often hear about, called service recovery problems.
Right.
So how do you deal with failures? And there's a pretty good literature on that. You want to listen, empathize, and act on service failures. But that's pretty well known.
So listen, empathize, and act. And then, but you talked about trust.
Yes, trust
and control.
Trust and control.
Trust would feed into emotions pretty quickly, I would think.
Well, trust is the baseline for everything. In other words, if you don't trust the organization, the service, and I focus on service interactions. If you don't have trust, then you have a real problem. Okay. Trust can be achieved through contracts and so forth, where if you don't treat me right, if you don't treat me fairly, I'll collect. But the kind of trust I'm after is the kind of trust that is not so much a legal thing as it is an emotional, a subrosa thing. And there's two kinds of trust that we can have. There's trusting in the motivation that people have to do a good job, and trusting in the capabilities that they have to do a good job. So how do you signal trust to your customer is an important thing.
I mean, that cycles back to things like the money-back guarantee.
Yes, that's right. Trust.
We're putting the money out. We're putting
right.
Our profits on the line here by saying if we don't deliver, you get your money back.
That's right.
And that helps that's a signaling for trust.
That's
ultimately.
Right. That's right. Also, one other thing about trust, which I think is sort of interesting, one way of demonstrating trust is to do something that you're not obligated to do. For example, after I pay you for a job, you tell if I do that job and I'm the server, you may say, hey, wait a minute, that room, I charged you too much for that room. You get 20% back. In other words, things that you're not obligated to tell somebody generates trust. So if there's nothing in it for you as a company, then you get people on your side by doing something that is
and of course, the irony is that there is something in it for you as a company when you do that, because having done that, you generate trust.
Exactly.
You bond the customer to your company and your brand, and perhaps build a longer-term relationship.
Absolutely.
So there is some value to that in the long run.
Sure.
And then finally, control. Let's talk about control. What do we mean by control? Customer control, their control of the situation. As I understand it, sometimes you need to figure out a way to let them feel like they're helping guide the way the transaction is flowing.
Well, yeah, there's two kinds of control: the actual or behavioral control. In other words, what the customer controls can do things. The actual execute the control. For example, a very simple thing is that allowing a patient to decide which arm to draw blood from provides a feeling of control. And there's actual behavioral control. He's saying, do it from here. That's one kind of control, and there are many other kinds of control that you say, okay, you can come and visit the patient, and allow the patient to say you can come and visit at off-peak hours in the hotel, in the hospital, so that there's some control over there. You're controlling behavior of the organization by giving the people choice, giving the patient choice. The other kind of control is cognitive control, and this is an interesting type, because cognitive control says, I know as a customer, I don't have any real control over the operation, but I feel that somebody is controlling it, and I feel comfortable with it. A case in point which we see all the time is a take-a-number system at a hotel, or I should say a restaurant. There you say, okay, instead of having to wait in line and making sure that you're going to be served in turn, you can know that having a ticket in your hand all of a sudden gives you a feeling that things are in control. You'll be treated fairly, And there's sort of a trust element here. Now you trust the system. And the important thing is that you know that the system is in control by somebody, and that so you can kind of relax. So you don't have real actual control over the operation, but you have faith in the system.
It reduces anxiety.
Absolutely, that's right.
By introducing a sense of certainty.
That's right.
That we'll go through, and
That's
I'm
right.
number 87, and I'll be reached 87th, but I'll be reached
that's
at
right.
87 and not at 95.
That's right.
Okay, well, great. Well, Dr. Chase, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I look forward to your next paper.
Thank you. Thanks for